welcome back. I'm Kat. I read stories, I draw those stories, and play video games on other days. Uh, to let you know, I am using Sketchbook Pro, Huon's HS610 tablet, OBS for the streaming, and Onikuma for the headphones. I also use them for the recording too, so I apologize for the sounds. So, I am so glad that you guys can go and join us today. And I really hope that you enjoyed today's story, which is interesting, to say the least. Um, I've noticed quite a bit of a theme in most of these stories that Andrew Lang has compiled. I don't know what his overall theme was for the book, for this particular version, or this particular book. There are several books in his stories, or in this collection. Um, so yeah, each one is supposedly has a theme. I don't know what this one's theme is off the top of my head. Um, but yeah. So eventually I will figure it out or I will research it. You can let me know which one you think I ought to do. Though guessing means I'm learning, or at least thinking about it. Who knows? Anyways, I hope that y'all are doing well and that you enjoyed today's story.
The Yellow Fairy Book, edited by Andrew Lang, from the 2019 collection of Project Gutenberg. Story 8, The Donkey Cabbage. There was once a young hunter who boldly went into the forest. He had a merry and light heart, and as he went whistling along, there came an ugly old woman who said to him, "Good day, hunter dear. You are very merry and contented, but I suffer hunger and thirst. So give me a trifle." The hunter was sorry for the poor old woman, and he felt in his pocket and gave her all that he could spare. He was going on then, but the old woman stopped him and said, "Listen, dear hunter, to what I say. Because of your kind heart, I will make you a present. Go on your way, and in a short time you will come to a tree on which sits 9 birds, who have a cloak in their claws and are quarreling over it. Then take aim with your gun and shoot them in the middle of them. They will let the cloak fall, but one of the birds will be hit and will drop down dead. Take the cloak with you. It is a wishing cloak, and when you throw it on your shoulders, you have only to wish yourself at a certain place, and in the twinkling of an eye you are there. Take the heart out of the dead bird and swallow it whole, and early every morning when you get up, you will find a gold piece under your pillow." The hunter thanked the wise woman and thought to himself, "These are splendid things she has promised me, if only they came to pass." So he walked on about 100 yards, and then he heard above him in the branches such a screaming and chirping that he looked up, and there he saw a heap of birds tearing a cloth with their beaks and feet, shrieking, tugging, fighting, as if each one wanted it for himself. "Well," said the hunter, "this is wonderful. It is just as the old woman said." He took his gun on his shoulder, pulled the trigger, and shot into the midst of them, so that their feathers flew about. Then the flock took flight with much screaming, but one fell dead, and the cloak fluttered down. Then the hunter did as the woman had told him. He cut open the bird, found its heart, and swallowed it, and took the cloak home with him. The next morning when he awoke, he remembered the promise and wanted to see if it had come true. But when he lifted up his pillow, there sparkled a gold piece. And the next morning he found another, and so on every time he got up. He collected a heap of gold, but at last he thought to himself, "What good is all my gold to me if I stay home? I will travel and look a bit about the world." So he took leave of his parents, slung his hunting knapsack and his gun around him, and journeyed into the world. It happened that one day he went through a thick wood, and when he came to the end, there lay in the plain before him a large castle. At one of the windows in it stood an old woman with the most beautiful maiden by her side, looking out. But the old woman was a witch, and she said to the girl, "There comes one out of the wood who has a wonderful treasure in his body, which we must manage to possess ourselves of, darling daughter. We have more right to it than he. He has a bird's heart in him, and so every morning there lies a gold piece under his pillow." She told her how they could get a hold of it, and how she could coax it from him, and at last threatening her angrily, saying, "And if you do not obey me, you shall repent it." When the hunter came near, he saw the maiden and said to himself, "I have traveled so far now that I will rest, and turn into this beautiful castle. Money I have in plenty." But the real reason was that he had caught the sight of the lovely face. He went into the house and was kindly received and hospitably entertained. It was not long before he was so much in love with the witch maiden that he thought of nothing else, and only looked in her eyes, and whatever she wanted, that he gladly did. Then the old witch said, "Now we must have the bird heart. You will not feel it when it is gone." She prepared a drink, and when it was ready she poured it into a goblet and gave it to the maiden, who handed it to the hunter. "Drink to me now, my dearest," she said. Then he took the goblet, and when he had swallowed the drink, the bird heart came out of his mouth. The maiden had to get a hold of it secretly, and then swallow it herself, for the old witch wanted to have it. Thenceforward he found no more gold under his pillow, and it lay under the maiden's. But he was so much in love and so much bewitched that he thought of nothing except spending all of his time with the maiden. Then the old witch said, "We have the bird heart, but we also must get the wishing cloak from him." The maiden answered, "We will leave him that. He has already lost his wealth." The old witch grew angry and said, "Such a cloak is a wonderful thing. It is seldom to be had in the world, and have it I must and will." She beat the maiden and said that if she did not obey it will go ill with her. So she did her mother's bidding, and standing one day by the window, she looked away into the far distance as if she were very sad. "Why is it you are standing there looking so sad?" said the hunter. "Alas, my love," she replied, "over there lies a granite mountain where the costly precious stones grow, and I have a longing to go there, so that when I think of it I am very sad, for who can fetch them? Only the birds who fly, a man never." "If you have no other trouble," said the hunter, "that one I can easily remove from your heart." So he wrapped her in his cloak and wished themselves to the granite mountain. And in an instant they were there, sitting on it. The precious stones sparkled so brightly on all sides that it was a pleasure to see them. They collected the most beautiful and costly together. But now the old witch had through her caused the hunter's eyes to become heavy. He said to the maiden, "We will sit down for a little while and rest. I am so tired that I can hardly stand on my feet." So they sat down, and he laid his head on her lap and fell asleep. As soon as he was sound asleep, She unfastened the cloak from his shoulders, threw it on her own, left the granite and the stones, and wished herself home again. But when the hunter had finished his sleep and awoke, he found that his love had betrayed him and left him all alone on the wild mountain. "Oh," he said, "why is faithfulness so great in the world?" And he sat down in sorrow and trouble, not knowing what to do. But the mountain belonged to fierce and huge giants who lived on it and traded there. And had he not sat before long, he saw 3 of them striding towards him. So he lay down as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. The giants came up, and the first pushed him with his foot and said, "What sort of earthworm is this?" The second said, "Crush him dead." The third, contemptuously, "Is not worth the trouble. Let him live. He cannot remain here, and if he goes higher up the mountain, the clouds will take him and carry him off." Talking thus, they went away. But the hunter had listened to their talk, and as soon as they had gone, he rose and climbed to the summit. When he had sat there a little while, a cloud swept by, and seizing him, carried him away. It traveled for a long time in the sky, then it sank down and hovered over a large vegetable garden, surrounded by walls, so that he came safely to the ground amidst cabbages and vegetables. The hunter looked about him, saying, "If only I had something to eat! I am so hungry, and it will go badly for me in the future. For I see here not an apple or pear or fruit of any kind, but vegetables everywhere." At last he thought, At a pinch I can eat a salad. It does not taste particularly nice, but it will refresh me." So he looked about for a good head and ate it, but no sooner had he swallowed a couple of mouthfuls than he felt very strange. He found himself wonderfully changed. 4 legs began to grow on him, a thick head, 2 long ears, and he saw with horror that he had changed into a donkey. But as he was still very hungry, and this juicy salad tasted very good to him, to his present nature, he went on eating with a still greater appetite. At last he got a hold of another kind of cabbage, but scarcely had he swallowed it when he felt another change, and once more he regained his human form. The hunter now lay down and slept off his weariness. When he woke up the next morning, he broke off a head of the bad and a head of the good cabbage, thinking, "This will help me regain my own, and to punish the faithlessness." Then he put the heads in his pockets, climbed up the wall, and started off to seek the castle of his love. When he had wandered about for a couple of days, he found it quite easily. He then browned his face quickly so that his own mother would not have known him, and went into the castle, where he begged for lodging. "I am so tired," he said. "I can go no further." The witch asked, "Countryman, who are you, and what is your business?" He answered, "I am a messenger of the king, and I have been sent to seek the finest salad that grows under sun. I have been so lucky as to find it, and I am bringing it with me. But the heat of the sun is so great that the tender cabbage threatens to grow soft, and I do not know if I shall be able to bring it any further." When the old witch heard of the fine salad, she wanted to eat it, and said, "Dear countryman, just let me taste the wonderful salad." "Why not?" he answered. "I have brought 2 heads. I will give you one." So saying, he opened his sack and gave her the bad one. The witch suspected no evil, and her mouth watered to taste the new dish, so that she went into the kitchen to prepare it herself. When it was ready, she could not wait till it was served at the table, but immediately took a couple of leaves and put them in her mouth. No sooner, however, had she swallowed them than she lost her human form and ran into the courtyard in the shape of a donkey. Now the servant came into the kitchen, and when she saw the salad standing there, ready cooked, She was about to carry it up, but on the way, according to her old habit, she tasted it and ate a couple of leaves. Immediately the charm worked, and she became a donkey and ran out to join the old witch, and the dish with the salad in it fell to the ground. In the meantime, the messenger was sitting with the lovely maiden, and as no one came with the salad, and she very much wanted to taste it, she said, "I don't know where the salad is." Then thought the hunter, "The cabbage must have already begun to work," he said. "I will go down to the kitchen and fetch it myself." When he came, he saw that there were two donkeys running about the courtyard, but the salad was lying on the ground. "That's all right," he said. "Two have had their share." And lifting the remaining leaves up, he laid them onto the dish and brought them to the maiden. "I am bringing you the delicious food myself," he said, "so that you may not wait any longer." Then she ate, and as the others had done, she at once lost her human form and ran as a donkey into the yard. When the hunter had washed his face so that the changed ones might know him, he went to the courtyard, saying, "Now you shall receive a reward for your faithfulness." He tied all three with a rope and drove them away till he came to a mill. He knocked at the window, and the miller put his head out and asked what he wanted. "I have 3 tiresome animals," he answered, "which I do not want to keep any longer. If you will take them, give them food and stabling, and do as I tell you with them, I will pay you as much as you want." The miller replied, "Why not? What shall I do with them?" Then the hunter said that the old donkey, which was the witch, 3 beatings and 1 meal; to the younger one, which was the servant, 1 beating and 3 meals; and to the youngest, which was the maiden, no beatings and 3 meals, for he could not find it in his heart to let the maiden be beaten. Then he went back to the castle and found there all that he wanted. After a couple of days, the miller came and said that he must tell him that the old donkey, which was to be given 3 beatings and 1 meal, had died. The two others, he added, "are certainly not dead, and get their 3 meals every day, but they are so sad that they cannot last much longer." Then the hunter took pity on them, laid aside his anger, and told the miller to drive them back again. And when they came, he gave them some of the good cabbage to eat, so that they became human again. Then the beautiful maiden fell on her knees before him, saying, "Oh, my dearest, forgive me the ill I have done you. My mother compelled me to do it. It was against my will, for I love you dearly. Your wishing cloak is hanging in a cupboard. As for the bird heart, I will make a drink and give it back to you." But he changed his mind and said, "Keep it. Makes no difference, for I will take you to be my own dear true wife." And the wedding was celebrated, and they lived happily together till death.
Dun 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 dun! I hope that y'all enjoyed that story. It's an interesting story. It kind of feels like a mix of, what was it, Midsummer Night's Dream. Though I will, in full disclosure, inform you that I have actually not read that story. I've seen lots of variations, which, by the way, if you ever get the chance to watch The Librarians, I highly, highly recommend it. It's a very good show. I think, anyways. But I'm also slightly odd. So, there's that. So, again, I hope that y'all are doing well. As I said in my last video, I've been reading lots of different different lore and stories and everything, and it's really interesting the patterns that come up. Because one that I'm reading right now is one of the ones I'm reading right now is a Celtic lore, and it's very, very interesting. or the Celtic Irish lores. It's very interesting. A lot of it is also includes a lot of Welsh history as well, which kind of makes sense. So, you know, there's that. So today I am doing a slightly different way of doing my drawings. In case you didn't notice all the weird extra stuff, this time I actually am marking out where I'm putting my highlights and my, I suppose what you could call them as dark lights. You know, the darkest parts of the image. Now, which one's which? I'll tell you what, I forgot to add. Oh my goodness, this thing is going to drive me up the wall. Let's go with you. I think that one's worse. Never mind. I'll just do it by hand. I will figure it out. Right? Right? I'm a very silly human. Dun dun dun! If in doubt, go and change the page orientation. Seriously, like, that's like one of the best things you can do. It'll be okay. Oops. Yeah, that'll be okay. Oops. That's okay. Okie dokie. Ah, I'm going the wrong way. Anyways. Sorry, I'm not being super interesting right now. So, something that may help if you're just starting to draw or do digital illustrations, if you're on the computer like I am, or desktop, laptop, doesn't really matter. Um, Knowing the shorthand or the keystrokes makes life so much easier because you can simply just go and pop in a keystroke and voila, it is done. Which sounds absolutely makes lots of common sense. But a lot of people will still, and I'm guilty of this too, um, they will still go and go to a folder, go to a thing. And I will too, mostly because I don't have all of my keystrokes memorized and I don't have all of them programmed to my tablet. And I don't need all of the keystrokes either. There are different keystrokes for different things. And most of them I really don't use. Not because they aren't good, just because they aren't something I use in most of my work. So, that's a thing. That's very, very much a thing. Because, yeah, even if you do have a bunch of tools, you know, there's nothing to say, oh, I have to use this tool. No, no, you don't. You can choose to use it. But honestly, most of the time, there are literally way too many tools per thing. So it's just easier if you make a go-to. Speaking of, so, okay. Now, here's the thing, is that I have a go-to. I do have go-tos that I do. But it's been a minute and I had to, there was a crash and I had to go and re-upload this. Re-download it, install it, reinstall. There we go, not re-upload, reinstall this so then I could so that I could go and do work. Well, unfortunately, because I'm a very silly human, I did not go and save that. So, ta-da! I didn't go and save it, so now I'm missing it. And I have to go and make my favorites all over again. Which kind of bothers me a lot, but it's my own fault. Because I was the silly person. And didn't go and make sure that it was saved. And now I'm paying the price for it. Because instead of all my nice little brushes all in one area, I now have to go and find them. And that also tells you how often I'm actually using this. Rather, I tend to also use my, or flip side, I just go and use my brushes for specific layer. I have specific brushes for specific layers. in specific moods that it's just easier if I go and be like, okay, this is where this is where this is, and keep the brush families together, close together, so then I can just be like, okay. These are together, which means I can locate them very, very quickly. So that is actually mostly what I do now, is just be like, alright, I'm just going to keep these two very close together so then I can come back in and come back in at a layer point and then go and just use them. You know what, let's... There we go. I promise I'm not crazy or insane. Well, I probably am. But that's okay. That's okay. Do 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 do. I do not like this. Ah! That's the wrong one. Like, in sketch form, it looks fine. But... there we go. That looks much better. Yeah. Yeah. Do 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 do. Yes, I make sounds while working. And that's okay. Because brains are full of things that are going on. Whether we realize it or not, our brains are always going. Though I did hear a study, and I think several people have said it. Now, I don't have the research specifically to, or I don't have the specific research that is connected to anywhere, but I have heard, and you may have too, that about 40, what was it? It's like 30 to 50% of the population doesn't have an internal dialogue. And I think that confuses some people into thinking, oh, they don't have an internal dialogue, which means that they're not thinking. I mean, you can have an internal dialogue and still not think. Mostly it's the difference between thinking, what we classify as thinking, and not having, you know, mostly it comes down to situational awareness, which is what this is. my situational awareness is slightly negligible. Why? Because I certainly have some issues with knowing what to talk about. In case you hadn't noticed, I really don't know what to talk about most of the time. I am figuring it out. It is slow going because there are so many hours in the day. And, you know, some people need to decompress more than others. I'm not saying that completely ignoring everything is a good way to decompress, but yes, I hear the baby. That is my little fuzzy one. She is once more making her presence known. Whoops. Wait. Oh. Well, that was cool. Okay. Look, I did a smart thing. I'm joking. Oh my goodness. No, I did plenty of smart things. I've done some not so smart things as well, but that's okay. Do 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 do. Oops. This isn't like my other programs. Naturally, shouldn't be like my other programs. So I've got a little bit of everything. The only program that I haven't actually touched is Procreate, but I've touched almost every other program for drawing that's out there. If there is one that I do not know, I will be very impressed. You know what? I think that I'm gonna go this route. I was trying to stay away from it, but I have a really hard time staying away from texture. So, Texture Essentials is my favorite toolbar for the most part, specifically for the signature ink, the pencil pal, and the speckled. I do a ridiculous amount of work with the speckled and the signature ink. Like, those two are my two favorite brushes out of this pack, and it's completely free on their site, on Sketchbook's site. So, highly recommend it if you were curious. The basic, they have like 5 different basics, and you know, they're good. That's not what I'm wanting to do. This is what I'm wanting to do. Yay! So I honestly don't remember if I've said this or not. I need to go through the videos I've already done. But probably one of my biggest issues with digital art is how smooth it is. Like, you take a lot of these digital art pieces and there's no like real texture in them. And it bothers me. It bothers me a lot because we can literally simulate almost any texture out there. And it's super cool. But we don't. And I have a hard time reconciling with that. So, whenever I am working on a piece, I pretty much am almost exclusively in that Texture Essentials bundle, paintbrush bundle, um, because it has textures. The only problem I have with sketchbooks specifically is that depending on which ones, now I haven't had much problems with the textured essentials, um, but with some of the other brushes, uh, the charcoal ones are pretty bad about it. But it's a lot like, and I feel the reason why I say I wasn't sure that I've said this before is because I've harped on this so many times, with a lot of different people recommending this and be like, yeah, this is the downside of it, but for the most part, it's a really good alternative to Procreate. Is that once you get a lot of texture in there, it starts looking like it's a crayon rubbing when you use certain brushes. Charcoal is really, really bad about that. The charcoal and the pastel brushes are really, really bad about that. Like, super, super bad about that. And it bothers me oh so much. I'm just like, why would you do this to anyone? And that's just the thing. And every program's going to have its good and it's going to have great things and it's going to have bad things. The question is how are you going to deal with them? Like, so there's this really, really, really nice painting program called Rebel. Um, it's super nice. It literally feels like I'm painting with traditional materials, minus all the toxic chemicals, except for whatever your PC is giving off at the time. Um, but the biggest issue with it is that it's so powerful that I'm very limited as to what machines I'm working on. I can be working on. Like, that's the biggest issue I have with it. And if that's the biggest issue, it's not even that big of an issue. But it's super, super nice. And I love it so, so much. But it's not... So the question your next question might be, why aren't you using that for this stuff? Whenever I'm working in traditional media, I have a mindset, and this is just purely mindset. I have a mindset that I'm here to do work for hours and hours and hours because it's going to take time to dry, it's going to take time to finish interacting, I'm not going to be able to build on certain layers until it's dry. And Rebel, if you set it up for traditional painting, it will literally act the same way. Now, it's got a few other things that, lets you, prevents you from actually dealing with that, and then changing it when you want to. But I don't feel that, for me personally, that it's a good fit for doing these drawings because, like I said, whenever I'm working traditional, I feel like I need that extra time. And in some ways I do. I'm not quite at the point where I want, or that I am able to get what I want when I want yet. Like, there's a lot of things that I can do. And, it's it's not, I'm not saying that I can't do it. It's just going to take me longer to get there than somebody who's been focusing on this for years and years and years, days and days and days, things like that. So it's quite interesting to see that difference. And with Sketchbook, I feel, okay, I can get what I want out very, very quickly. I don't have to worry about interactions with things, with layers and how they're going to deal with that. I mean, yeah, I do, but even like some of the things I do. Now, don't get me wrong, I've done some really amazing stuff on Sketchbook, and I really, really like it. And like I said, I wholeheartedly recommend it. But like painting wise, if you're a traditional painter, I highly, highly, highly recommend Sketchbook or Rebel. But if you want to get started with digital work just to know what it's like, I highly recommend Sketchbook. There's a free version of it as well, which is just as good. Sketchbook Pro has a few other bells and whistles with it. Like that folder. The folder thing is super awesome. So, highly recommend. If you can, spare like $20 for a one-time fee. That's it. Highly recommend it. And if you're using Procreate, by all means. Now, again, I can't say anything as far as Procreate goes, but I do think that if you're going to want a more painterly route with texture, with the actual like textures and interactions that you get with traditional media, I do recommend Rebel. It's a little bit more expensive. You might check Humble Bundle, because they are known to sell it on there, which is how I got my version of it. But yes, that is definitely a thing. And I will have links in the description eventually. I know that sounds so bad, but I promise I will. I will. One day, it'll just happen out of the blue and you'll be like, what? What is this? And other people will be like, wasn't this always here? I'm not intentionally gaslighting. I promise. I did this wrong. It's okay. It's in the eye of the beholder. It's one of the. This is one of those effects that. Is it a duck or is it a bird type? Is it a duck or is it a seal type thing? All it takes is shifting your mind and shifting your mind's eye, and you can see it in a different way. Ah. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. It's all great. Don't need to know what I'm talking about. I'm joking. I'm joking. It's the difference between concave and convex. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Okie dokie, folks. Nope, not yet. I promise it'll all make sense one day. No! Thank you, my lovely furry baby. Thank you so much. I love you very, very much. I love my Kit Kat very, very much. And she lets me know that she loves me too, by knocking all my stuff on the floor. Don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that. Is there a way to do this faster? 100%. Am I going to do it? Not at all. And you may ask why. Mostly it's a personal choice, because that's the thing. It's also artistic choice. But oddly, I have received a lot of, like every time tell people, hey, this is how I've done this, they're all like, oh my god, you sat there and did that? And it's like, yes, I did. They just look at me like I'm a little bit insane. Okay, so you know how I was talking about the, sorry to jump, but you know how I was talking about the like crayon rubbings and everything, where the texture and everything, you can see it a little bit here, and there's some more like along here that you can see. Now they try to do a really really good job with it, but they do a decent job of hiding it, and depending on how you draw and paint, it can hide it very very well. But because I typically use such fine lines, it's really really apparent in the work that I do, which is, for me personally, a little frustrating. And I'm sure that for the developers, if they ever end up watching this, it'll be more than a little frustrating for them as well, because it's like, that's not how that's supposed to work. That's okay. Of course it's not how it's supposed to work, because artists typically don't do things how they're supposed to work. Like, you thought I was going to go all the way down the neck. I didn't feel like going all the way down the neck. So, yes, this is one reason why my art takes forever. Forever. Though I am doing a series on my Instagram, which I will find somewhere, the link for it somewhere. It's part of the Bird Whisperer project. You can post it on any sharing platform out there, and the whole thing with it is that you paint a very specific bird. And so to get me out of doing this, I give myself a very very limited amount of time and choose like 2 or 3 colors out of the palette, out of the photo, because you have to use a photo reference for it, and you have to use that very specific photo reference. There are some amazing pieces that have come out of it, and I highly highly recommend doing it. Some artists have refined their techniques in doing that series, which has just been phenomenal. Anyways, the thing with that though is that what I'm trying to do with it is limit the amount of limit my brush sizes, and I am not playing with you right now, dear one. I'm still working. Sorry. Right, limiting my brush sizes and trying to get it down to where I'm painting the entire image in 1 hour. Which is very, very difficult to do. If you haven't ever done it before, it's a trip. It is most definitely and assuredly a trip. Um, so I would, if you want to get really good at painting and painting quickly, I recommend giving as many, challenges as you can to doing, uh, to doing these types of projects where you're limited on time and you limit yourself on your color palette and you just go for it, because oh my gosh, does one, it sends you into kind of a panic mode and you're just like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? And then you do it and sometimes you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. Other times you're just like, okay, better luck next time. Now, why am I not doing this series like that? Is that in the end, these drawings are actually going to go into a book that I'm formatting and redoing the Andrew Lang books. Yes, that is what I'm going to end up doing, which is one reason why I'm trying to speed up my drawings, because I am so far behind on this project. I was actually supposed to start it this year in January, and I kind of got started on it a few years ago. And it kind of just keeps falling to the wayside. So here we are, instead embarrassing myself on, the internet internationally. This is embarrassing myself internationally. No, I'm not embarrassing myself internationally. I enjoy talking to you guys. I hope you guys enjoy listening to me ramble, because that's all I'm doing, is rambling while I'm painting. Maybe I should change my channel title to Rambles. Ramble, ramble, ramble. Oh my god, now I remember that show Cheddar. Anyways, folks, okay, before I go down that lane. Alright, folks, here we are at the end. I hope that you've enjoyed today's progress. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing and talking with you again on the next video, which is Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, provided nothing happens and craziness does not ensue. Craziness always ensues. Life will always provide craziness if you allow it. That's not to say that I don't have some plans that are going to be coming up, in which case I will not be able to do that. That's going to be next month, so we should all be good with that. Anyways, I hope that y'all are doing well, that you enjoyed the drawings today, as well as the conversation, what little of it there was. If you have any questions, feel free to message me, leave me a comment. Please leave me comments, because I would love to go and answer any questions. And if you want to chat, by all means, please feel free to chat. I am not afraid of answering questions. I'm obviously also not afraid of talking. Dun dun dun! And I will be posting the finals of these as they get done. I will probably be posting them on Instagram, and I will be posting the progress of them, the final progress of them, into the channel, which will be interesting, to say the least. Because I have no idea what I'm doing. No, that's a lie. I do know what I'm doing, kind of. Alright, folks, I will see you next time. Enjoy